Oh, and they get Jack Parsons. Now, this is a fictionalized thing, but it's based on a book about Jack Parsons, and these are pieces of history that I wasn't aware of, right? So you're I don't know, you were born in 1914, but you're older than we are. And so maybe you have a little bit more
No,
information.
I'm only 77, so I've got a long ways to
You're
go.
77. And Sasha's
Yes, ma'am.
78, and he was born in
Oh,
1940. So he was
tell him
born,
I
you
will.
were born when World War
1942.
II started.
1942.
Okay,
Yep.
so World War II was on while you were born, which doesn't make you an expert, but you were alive when that action was happening on this planet. Anyway, so I was just shocked about that, but and it's a good show. I recommend it. It's on CBS Full Access, and I'm in the middle of it, so don't tell me the end. Don't tell me the end. And the second season premieres June 2nd, 2019. So I want to catch up and be caught up when the second season. But so this when he was born, when Parsons was born, all the scientists back in the 20s and 30s were saying it's impossible for us to go into space. So he had to go up
Right.
again. When he was at Caltech, he was saying, "What do you mean it's impossible?" So he was talking to von Braun, and they were doing these fuels across the world, the slow motion way, which was a written letter in cursive. You remember kids who used to write longhand? Yeah, that's what we used to do back then. Talking about the phones, right? People used to write longhand, put it in an envelope, lick it closed, stick it on a stamp, and send it across the world. I don't know how long it took a letter to get from California to Germany and back, but so they were figuring it out back then, defying the given science. But now what we know with the secret space program, what we think we know, is that the Nazis and all those people, or the aliens that were working with the Nazis, the secret space program, that was probably starting up back then, or maybe part of it, aspects that were in full swing. So from what you recall with Dr. Lesson, and you were on Mars, was that a full action by the time you were there with bases? I haven't read the book or seen anything about the regression. When you were on Mars, what was it like there?
Okay, you're referring to the hypnotic regression on book number. That's actually my second book. This was the regression of a NASA whistleblower, and that was published a couple of years now. It's amazing how fast time is going when we're trying to keep up and get information out. Your question for me was, ask your question again so that I can keep up with you here.
Okay, so what do you recall when you were on Mars? Was there a full base there? Was it a city? Was it ruins? Was it all modern? Was it Americans? Was it a joint fleet with, other, yeah. What do you recall?
Okay, from the second regression, and I haven't
for a little bit.
And I haven't published that second session that we had. We actually have some bases, and I've seen before I was even hypnotized or regressed, bases, but the bases aren't like you'd expect an airport where you can really check it out and see it. There, in some cases, it looks like it's just a big square block that has an entrance, a door to it, and that's actually entrance, and you go down the elevators to the underground bases. Now, as far as the craft that we used to circumnavigate around Mars, those are in the side of a hill or small mountain where you have basically it's what they did down at Area 51, and they went over to not too far from there, and they hollowed out part of a mountain area and had a fold down door. This is what we have on Mars, where we have our various little hopper machines and things like that to go. So it's a flattened out area, but you wouldn't recognize it if you were to be flying over it. It's pretty well hidden. So that's kind of what I remember from the session, what it looked like, and where we kept the hoppers that I got to fly one of those things. So as far as von Braun was concerned, working at NASA in Houston, when we would have review sessions once a month usually on our progress, because we were in a space race with Russia to be the first ones to land on the moon and to return safely back to the Earth. That's what John F. Kennedy said, that within this decade had to accomplish that. Well, at these meetings, now I was just a lowly little engineer and test pilot with Grumman to be one of the what they call us, the civilian astronaut consultant pilots. That's what my lunar module spacecraft logbook has me titled as. At any rate, our job there was to sit back, keep our mouths shut, and maybe meet the people during and after the meetings. But while it was going on, we just kept our mouths shut unless one of the head directors, in this case von Braun, or those in charge of the vacuum chambers, would come up and they had to answer certain questions and things. They would then ask us, those of us that were doing the work, to elaborate a little bit on those. So that's how I had first-hand contact directly with Wernher von Braun, and then actually Dr. Thornton Page and those folks that were the debunkers, but also Dr. William Tompkins, not Dr. William. He was sitting in on several of those meetings that I was in. In fact, that we even met for dinner and some things like that outside of not JPL, but one of the other major aerospace companies there in what do you call it? Johnston Spacer. Now, right now, people listening, and if I sound like I'm stuttering, etc., thank you for people who are using their cell phones and driving vehicles and not watching what they're doing. We were rear-ended almost 2 years ago now. My wife was driving, and I was sitting in the passenger seat. She got hit so hard that it slammed back against the seat headrest, and it caused a little bit of damage in the frontal. So I can be talking along and trying to give you direct answers, and then it'll go blank, and I'll have to ask you, okay, now what was I just talking about? And then I can pop back in. It's rough. I'm healing. It's been almost 2 years, and I'm making a lot of progress. But it is something I'm adamant about. If, someone calls you on the cell phone, if it's important, when you get someplace, you can call them back, and you're not going to lose anything. So some of us have gotten ourselves hurt a little bit, and sometimes it's not by accident. I truly believe that. There are certain organizations that want to do their best to get rid of some of us that still have answers and the truth and everything that we can come forward with that information. So I hope that answered your question, Janet. You have another one?
Yeah, that was pretty good. So so when you were talking, so you actually met Bill Tompkins. Bill Tompkins wrote the book Selected by Extraterrestrials, and he explained to the world how there was a full-on program going to get us to not just to the moon, but to take they were going to take the pre-manufactured structures to create a full moon base. So the front program was NASA, but the real program was to colonize the planets, colonize the stars, and he had been working at that level. So when you were at these meetings, let's focus a little bit on your meetings with. I wasn't aware that you had met Bill Tompkins. So fill that in for me a little bit again. So what was the first time you met Bill, and what capacity? Were you talking about the secret space program aspects or the NASA aspects when you were in meetings with him?
No, at that time, we were still, we were just finished up the vacuum chamber testing, and we're getting ready to go for the very first Earth orbital flight, where we would separate the lunar module from the command module, and then back away for several miles and things, and then be able to re-rendezvous and then dock. We practiced that in Apollo 9, and then we did Apollo 10 and flew to the moon and separated in orbit around the moon, and didn't land on Apollo 10 on the moon, but we rendezvoused and docked again, and proving out each step by step. Well, what I was involved with, and we had the meetings where we had the various contractors, Grumman, Northrop, Boeing, etc. We would have representatives from each one of those companies giving a report on our progress to the NASA directors, Chris Kraft and the rest of them. So that's where I had the privilege of sitting in on the meetings with von Braun, as well as and then I met, there we go, there he is, bring him up. You call him Bill Tompkins. Yeah.
Bill Tompkins, yes.
Yep. I got to know him just casually, and then a couple of interesting events that took place after work, et cetera. And then didn't really see much or hear from him until, oh mercy, if and I have a question whether or not he actually passed away or instead went to Mars, to the bases on Mars. But let's say that if he did pass away, I met him there at Contact in the Desert 2 years ago, I guess it was. Wow, time's fast. And we just got to chat a little bit and confirm the fact that, yeah, we did run into get to each other way back in about that would have been 60, the Apollo 11 was in 69, so that had to be in 67, 68 that we were actually working sort of together. So that's how I made the contact with him.
That was actually at the MUFON conference in Vegas. I was there. And that was the only one that he got to do before he died or was relocated. That was in Vegas in not last year, but the year before. Yeah,
I
know,
so I
was
because
there.
I had to go.
I was watching you run around with everybody, right? So it was like a big family reunion, right? But hey.
Well, then the thing there is that I had to leave that and go to India, and that's when I returned back to India because I was doing lectures at the universities in India at the time that was going on, and so and I was almost taken out while I was in India on my second trip, and that's thanks to those debunkers that were involved in it. And I don't mind telling the guy's name if he's still alive, and that was what's his name? Here we go. Anyway, he called the director of science of India, and got in touch with him and told him that I wasn't who I said I was, that I was just there to get money for them, giving lectures and talk. And boy, they got their assistant director of science came and sent a person up to talk to me at the place where they had me visiting, and they came out with the questions about, do you do this? I said, let me show you documents and prove who I am. And the guy said, oh, wow, I'm glad. He says, because somebody was coming out and saying that I really wasn't the right person, et cetera. So they took me off the mountain where the place was, and we went down to the main airport, went in, and the assistant director of science in Chennai, India, got the director of police, really security at the airport, put me in a holding room, bought me a ticket to get me out of Chennai and back to the United States, and said, don't come back. Well, I have a letter on my wall here, a letter of apology that they didn't check out and find out that James Oberg was just out there trying to debug and do his job of shutting down, so we couldn't get the truth out to everybody. So it got real dangerous for me. So I'm fortunately I'm glad that that I've survived that, and I'm still going on strong. So we're going to get more information out to everybody. Go ahead.
And just to correct you on your timeline, because I was here too, that was after UFO Congress that happened. He went to.
Oh, really?
He went to. Yeah, because we were saying, don't go, Ken. We felt you were in danger, but you went anyway. And then you were. So anyway.
And I wasn't. I was in danger. You were right. It shows me I should listen to your psychic abilities more.
Yeah, and it was Karen was there too. We were going, don't go, Ken, don't go. Oh, we love you, Ken. Don't go. Anyway, you weren't really. I don't think they're going to kill you, but you did have a bad time, so that was sad to see. I mean, I was hoping everything would work out for you, but anyway, I'm glad they apologized.
Right.
At least that's the happy ending. They apologized.
No, I've been invited back. I've been invited back. My wife says no. So we'll see how that goes.
I don't blame her. You know, I don't blame her. You're precious.
It was like that car accident. The car accident. I'm not so sure that the person that rear-ended us I tell you, it destroyed her vehicle. She survived. She was seat belted in tight, and so we were stopped dead still at a T intersection.